It is 1 o'clock. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. The NFL Draft is just 1 day away. Titans held their pre-draft press conference yesterday where General Manager Mike Berganzi had this to say about any trade rumors surrounding the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, no, we've come to a consensus. The entire organization is to stay at that pick, and I guess you'll find out Thursday night who we pick.
In the other NFL news, the league announced today that the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Chargers will face off in this year's Hall of Fame game on July 31st during the annual Hall of Fame induction weekend. The NBA playoffs continue as the Memphis Grizzlies have fallen behind 2-0 in their series with the Oklahoma City Thunder, losing last night 118-99. Grizz look to try and pull within one game as they return to Memphis for a Game 3 tip-off tomorrow at 8 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615. He had me turned all the way down. Yeah,
What?
I mean, probably everybody heard me come into the middle of the intro because he had me turned down because he was off gallivanting around the studio back there. Don't know what he was doing.
I was not gallivanting. I just forgot that you use a different mic than Buck.
That is true. Buck uses this one over here. He likes to lean. He has a gangster lean or something. He likes to lean in the microphone.
He's a natural gangster.
He looks like Larry King. It's a Larry King pose. If you remember, Larry King always looks like this when he's talking on the radio. And so, I use the one that's actually in front of us. I don't have a special microphone like a normal person.
With that being said, a normal person, Zakai Ziegler has been named the Tennessee Sports Writers Association Men's Basketball Player of the Year.
All right, congratulations.
Whoa,
That's
that
pretty
was
big.
3 hours ago.
Oh, was it?
I mean, but
I hadn't heard anybody talk about it.
Nobody's talking about
It's
it.
because it's
First
draft
heard
season.
here.
Yeah, it's draft season.
We had to get that in there. We got our Tennessee plug.
So we didn't get to, because of the press conference yesterday, we didn't get to talk about two volunteer-related topics, Tennessee Volunteers football-related topics. One of them is that Joey Aguilar did end up coming into and being signed, or I guess is it signed? Is that the right term? Transferred, I guess would be better, to the University of Tennessee. You watched a couple of different more games. I just watched the UNC All 22. The Clemson All 22. And I have to say, I know a lot of people will say that I'm a hater. And I know that Joseph is a little nervous because I'm actually about to be nice. And he thinks that's a bad omen for Joey Aguilar. But I think there's something there. I think there's something there that you can work with. It really becomes how fast can he learn the system for me. Because I think he has the talent. He has the physical tools. I think in the Clemson game, he had a couple of overthrows and stuff like that. But he also was not helped out by his receivers or offensive line a lot. So I look at it and I go, yeah, I could see this turning into something. It's just going to come down to how quick can he learn the system.
Yeah, I've watched it. What I could say is, man, he looks like he's a tough cookie. He can run. But as far as throwing, I thought he was very inconsistent. And when I say that is, sometimes you don't know if it was the receivers' fault or not with some of the, I'm going to just call it overthrows on like curls, not overthrow. And then there was times that I was unsure. I know a lot of people keep saying his arm strength is really good. There were a lot of underthrows, even though they were catches. So I just want to say he's inconsistent. I think he has some potential to be a solid player. So yet to be determined. So we shall see. I hope he is, actually, because he shows you glimpses of like, oh, this can work. And then sometimes they go, that should have been better than that. There's a couple times he threw to the wrong guy, and then they just dropped the ball, especially against Clemson, by the way. I watched the Clemson, North Carolina games and a little bit more than that, but because I wanted to be a little bit sure that he was inconsistent. I'll watch him more against the, bigger opponents for Appalachian State at the time. So you get to see really what it was. But when they did the hurry-up offense, he looked really good.
Well, what does Tennessee probably want to get back to? Because I will say, for all the faults of maybe the offensive scheme being to blame for this whole Nico thing, they did do less no-huddle offense.
They did.
So now maybe they'll get back to their bread and butter, which could be a good thing for this. So Football Fred in the F&M Bank chat, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, wherever you get your Zone TV. And I'm going to ask you this question, Jackson. Football Fred, though, says, if Zach thinks he's good, then I have no doubt he sucks. Guy was a Shadur Sanders advocate. So because I am showing some positivity, your all's way, are you guys scared?
I'm not. Joseph has the worst case of BVS I've ever seen in my life.
But have you watched him? The
I
quarterback?
have not watched a ton of him. I've seen highlights here and there. I haven't really watched him a ton yet. I do, looking at his stats, I want to watch his turnovers. I want to see what kind of because he's thrown more interceptions.
Yeah, 24 in 2 years.
Yeah, than the last couple of Tennessee quarterbacks have thrown in their career.
Yeah.
So how much system dependent is it?
Well, here's the question. If he starts throwing interception, that's where I'm concerned with his inconsistency, because he had 1 year where he was really good, I think, and then they had the same players back, I think, and the same coaching staff, if I'm right on that, and then it just didn't look the same. And I don't know why in his numbers, but if he's inconsistent throwing to the wrong guy, how long then will Heupel's leash be? And that will then hence kind of give you the mental psyche of the quarterback, and he could kind of mess him up, even though if he's doing good. Let's say you throw a pick six and then look, in the second quarter, and then all of a sudden you look back over the game and that was really the play that lost the game that you should have actually won. So that's a little concerning, bringing up the interceptions. That's a lot. It is a lot over a 2 year span.
It's going to be interesting seeing how long that leash really is, because a lot of people in 2023 were pining for Nico to go in over Joe Milton. And Heupel was never going to do that because Nico was a true freshman and it was in the middle of SEC play. But you have Jake Merklinger, who is a redshirt freshman, who's been in the system for a year. How much does that change your quarterback situation if Aguilar even wins the job? I mean, this is going to be a competition.
Yeah, you said that the whole time, and I think that's the big question. And then if you go with, Aguilar, and then he starts off a little shaky, then what? And that is the concern. And
it's not like Tennessee has only cupcakes in the first few.
Syracuse, right?
Syracuse is a good football team.
Mm-hmm. Well, they got to get him a quarterback, but right, yeah.
Yeah, they have to get but their defense will be ready to play week one. So that'll be it won't be obviously the biggest test Tennessee has all season, but it will be a good barometer for what the quarterback situation looks like for the rest of the year against real Power 5 opponents.
Yeah, I talked to KB. That's Keith Bullock there. He said there's no Keith Bullocks or Donovan Darris out there for Syracuse.
I will say this. I'm surprised nobody's brought up that maybe I'm just trying to be nice just to jinx you guys.
Well, I automatically thought that. So I don't know.
I mean, nobody said it, but, maybe
I'm
that's
hoping for the best for him, because actually I want him to do really well. It looks like he can be, because, he's kind of an underachiever to a certain extent, being a blue-collar guy from the West Coast, and then his journey there from JUCO to Appalachian State, then to UCLA, and now for a semester then to Tennessee. So I want him to see him do well, let alone Tennessee. Yeah. So I'm just hoping. I always was concerned about who was going to be the quarterback and not focusing on the dumb decisions by Nico and his crew, because it doesn't matter. He's no longer with the Vols. So I was focusing on more, okay, moving forward, who do we get that's going to be better than what we have? And can he be? And they got lucky with at least some experience in throwing the rock all around. And you may like him or not, but I think he can bring some valuable tools as long as he doesn't throw these interceptions.
Jax, what you
got? Have you guys seen on Twitter Vols fans talking about what former Tennessee quarterback Joey Aguilar looks like?
No.
They're saying he looks like Jarrett Garantano, which is causing a lot of BVS flare-ups, and Jarrett Garantano is catching some crazy strays on Twitter right now.
Really? What was his numbers as far as interceptions? Did he throw a lot of picks, too?
There were a lot of untimely ones.
Yeah, he definitely had bad timing. Other than that, I thought he was pretty solid. I know he gets a lot of grief there, but he wasn't horrible like that. Is he on the staff?
In 2019 and 2018, he never threw double-digit touchdowns.
or interceptions.
Interceptions. He threw double-digit touchdowns twice, but never. But they were, like Jackson said, untimely.
Yeah.
And there was that fumble against Alabama.
And look, college football is always more fun when Tennessee is competitive and better.
Yeah.
But my Saturdays are always more fun when they're a disaster. So let's talk about, speaking of disasters, Nico's family keeps making headlines. Madden, the younger brother, entered the transfer portal on April 21st, less than 5 months after signing a lucrative NIL deal with Arkansas Edge, the Razorbacks collective. The Razorbacks didn't just lose a high-profile recruit. They lit the fuse on a larger war over accountability in college athletics. This is by Stephen Corder over at Athlon Sports. He says, now the University of Arkansas, led by athletic director Hunter Yurachek, is signaling a shift in the power dynamic between players, collectives, and programs. 2 hours after Madden's name hit the portal, Yurachek took to social media not to mourn a lost prospect, but to make a statement. He said, I've spoken with the leadership team at Arkansas Edge and expressed my support in their pursuit to enforce their rights under any agreement violated by our student athletes moving forward. The enforcement of these agreements is vital in our new world of college athletics. Madden, a four-star recruit who flipped from UCLA to Arkansas on National Signing Day, signed a one-year NIL deal reportedly valued close to $500,000. But when he decided to leave before ever taking a snap, that deal, like many others in this NIL marketplace, was left in limbo. So these Arkansas contracts, so this is what we've been kind of wondering, what's in these contracts? Arkansas Edge's contracts typically include buyout clauses requiring players to repay 50% of their remaining contract value if they leave early. And Madden still had 8 months left on his deal, potentially triggering a six-figure repayment. And while most schools have so far avoided legal battles due to the public relations concern, Arkansas may be first to test the boundaries of NIL enforcement. So that's you, Blaine. Should they? Because I think they should.
Yeah, probably so. When I say that, it's because to me, if I'm structuring players coming into, I'm tiering my payments so that nobody's going to get some big whopping lump sum just for this. For when guys leave. Let's say now we've only paid him $100,000 compared to maybe they gave him, $1 million. So I just think, but I love how you have it out here, and then it's going to make other, people take notice and go, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna do that. And then if they win, I don't know if it's a big PR deal for Arkansas at this point in time.
Especially against the Nico family.
I'm going to say this.
Right
if I'm on the Arkansas side, I'm definitely pursuing it. There's no question.
What's interesting is that Arkansas is leading the SEC with 34 players transferring out since December. Now, that is an issue in and of itself in my eyes. If you got 34 players leaving, what does that say about the state of your football program in general?
That means they probably should fire the coach. And I like that coach.
Yeah.
That many guys leaving? Were any of them
34.
starters?
And so, to me, maybe there is developing the talent that wants to be there is a big issue, but also smarter contract structuring, because it sounds like it must be pretty easy to leave these contracts for the most part. But
if those guys are starters,
now you're talking
assuming
about
that they're starters,
right? Maybe some, but look at it this way: 33 players have left. He makes 34th, and this is the guy that you're going to make the example out of. I mean, I don't know. There should be 33 other players you probably should have thought about somewhere along in there. Start making the example, because it may, even the way it's worded says going forward, they're going to enforce these rules. So does that mean that maybe Madden is out of it, and they're going to do it after Madden? We'll see. I don't know.
Well, it also could depend on those other guys didn't have the contract that he has. And when I say that, I'm talking about for the amount of money that they gave him to get it. Because remember, he did flip over UCLA at the end. So maybe that's the reason for him to have pause and cause to hey, maybe we should do this. But I would be more interested in why 34 players are leaving. Do they think the coach is going to be leaving or getting fired? What is the issue? Probably a lot of starters?
I mean, that's a lot. Right now, their quarterback situation is redshirt freshman Malachi Singleton and sophomore Jacoby Criswell. So they're kind of left in probably a worse situation than University of Tennessee, but 34 players.
That's not a good sign.
That is insane. And I understand Arkansas's head coach. I've worked with a few people who speak very highly of him.
Oh, you got to like Pittman.
Yeah. Everybody really likes Sam Pittman. But that is a big issue that I see right there that would have my alarm bells going off if I was an athletic director or part of this Arkansas Edge collective. So we'll talk a little bit more when we come back. We also got Alex on the phone who wants to talk to NIL. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door, 615-737-1045. You want to get in on the conversation. We're about to go to Alex, but we want to ask you. It doesn't have to be at the second round pick, but that's where kind of my guy falls. But, like, who is a prospect that you have watched or a player that you have watched over the offseason or over their college football career that you're like, please, Tennessee Titans, do not draft this guy? Because you, in your hearts, you know that he is likely not going to work out here. This isn't the right situation for him. Because all players can thrive in certain situations, but maybe this is not the right fit for him. Let's go to Alex, who wants to talk about the NIL. Alex, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I want to talk about the NIL stuff with the collectives and specifically with the Arkansas stuff. First off, there needs to be better contracts, no question. But at the end of the day, everybody feels like a contract is like this hugely binding agreement and no matter what. And it kind of is, but only if the other side is willing to pursue legal action. Contracts are broken every single day, continuously, and it only matters if the person on the other side takes legal action, period. So, and it sounds like every one of these players that have an NIL deal and leave or miss media appearances or whatever are breaking these contracts, and nothing's happening as it goes because nobody wants the bad PR. So as soon as we get over that aspect, the team's not wanting to take a black eye on the PR for a contract dispute or whatever you want to call it, the NIL environment will be a lot better. And with Arkansas, 34 players losing or leaving, we need context that number. How many of those 34 were on scholarship? How many are transferring to Power 4 schools and not going down? Because, you know, some of those players, I'm sure Arkansas is glad to have that Scully back because they oversigned them or undersigned the player and stuff like that. So context with guys leaving is always important, but the collective stuff has to get organized and governed.
Hey, I think that's a impassioned speech. I like it. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. You guys start enforcing them, but also maybe not all 34 are the right situation to be enforcing them, because you kind of echoed what Alex echoed, and like how many of those were starters? Who were these players? And I think that is important, but I do think just the large number, regardless of status quo of them on the roster, and wherever they may go, that is still 34 players leaving a single program, which just is astounding. That's an astounding number. That's like over half a football team for an NFL team, right? I mean, we're talking about the NFL team fields 53 player rosters, and 34 over here in college just left one school. That's crazy. So that's just where I land on that. I mean, I'm not saying that anything other than that's eyebrow raising for me.
Yeah, and I wonder how like administrations look at that. You know, the AD, the president. You know, why are all these players a big lump sum like that? 34. That's a big number. Do the players know something that we don't know?
Yeah. I mean, something is going on there. I mean, you got to figure that out, right? Because I mean, if I was
an alarming number.
Well, obviously money changes everything. So when I ask you this question, I understand money changes everything. But if you were a player looking to transfer and Arkansas contacted you and you knew that 34 other players just left, wouldn't that kind of raise your eyebrows as a kid?
Well, yeah, it probably would, but most kids are probably just looking for
that money.
To play.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Money. Yeah. So what's one thing is true is what's not a good fit at one place may be a good fit for you.
That is true.
Aguilar and Nico.
Yeah.
Right? See?
Right.
So, it's really hard to say.
So my guy specifically for the second round, but what is a guy that you're like, this does not seem like a good fit or good fit for the value as well? So you can look at it a couple different ways. You'd be overdrafting someone. This is not a good fit for Tennessee. His name is Femi Oladejo. He's the edge rusher out of UCLA. Now, I use the term edge rusher technically loosely because he's only played 10 games at edge his entire career. He was an inside linebacker before making the switch halfway through this year at UCLA. And what's interesting about him is that they said the reason they moved him was so he could do less thinking and more attacking. Okay, so that raises a little bit of a red flag for me.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is that, okay, he's pretty violent, but he's getting flopped around by NFL level talent on tape. LSU comes to mind. And it's all about potential. And to me, I look at it and I go, well, if it's all about potential, that's not a guy you take at 35. And so one of the last lines in Dane Brugler's assessment of him is that he has 3-down potential, although convincing NFL teams that he is coachable enough to reach his ceiling will be key for him throughout the draft process.
Coachable? What do you mean?
Well, that's the thing is like I hear coachable and then I hear do less thinking and more attacking. Is this a Will Levis situation where he's just not fitting in anywhere? But that's the reason why you bring these kids in. He was brought in for a 30 visit here at Tennessee, so maybe they have the answer to their question. But I've heard that he's not off their board.
Well, no. When I hear that, what I think of is that he's a ding dong, and ding dongs mean he's not a smart football player.
Yeah,
he could be smart in the classroom, in the books,
yeah,
and all that, but his reaction just is not it for us.
And
so we're going to put him in a spot where attack, and there's no thinking.
Yeah,
that's what I hear.
Does that work in the NFL at edge rusher, in your opinion? Because
it will.
It will.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll have what's your responsibility?
Yeah.
Go get the ball.
Go get the ball. But it says right here he has 3-down potential. But I look at it and I go, at 35, like to me, if you're talking about in the 4th round, I take a shot on him. But to me, it's that 2nd round pick, 35. And I don't even know if I would do it in the 3rd round. Of course, at that point, your options are maybe slim at edge rusher, and you may have to take a shot. But I look at it and I go, at 35, because that's where I've seen him in a lot of mock drafts to the Tennessee Titans, that's a little too scary and a little too rich for my blood right there. So that's what I'm kind of looking at. Like, it's a little bit of fit, it's a little bit of him, and it's a little bit of the value. Like it's nothing like, okay, well if he's in the 4th round, don't take him anywhere in the draft, but 4th round is kind of where I peg him at.
That's a tough question for me because I think it depends on who you're coaching. It's just like saying I wouldn't draft this guy, and another person would say I would draft this guy.
Yeah.
So I think it's about what your tolerance is as a coach and administration there that's drafting a player and how he fits with your scheme and your system. So that's I'm kind of a guy, I feel like I can find a way to make it work for anybody. That's kind of who I am. People will tell you somebody can't even play, and I'm going, hey, man, that guy's a real good player. And I'm like, hey, man, they just got to be able to hit the trigger points of what he communicates and how he talks and how he reads. And naturally, you're going to run into some players that just aren't going to ever get it.
That.
Right, but guess what? I want to say that I gave it all. And you only give those 2 opportunities to people who have super-duper athleticism.
Yeah.
And you say, I can get him. I can work with him.
He does have great athleticism.
Murray.
Yeah.
Murray was they just say that sometimes he lapses on reads, but if you put him up and running and jumping and everything else, you go, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Well, guess what I would have done with him? Made him a defensive end and not a middle linebacker.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is that version for you, for Femi Oladejo, right?
I think he's more of a 3-4 in pass rusher guy. That's kind of how I see him in this league. I always look because the Ravens and the Steelers kind of have that best 3-4 scheme type where those tweener type players can really excel.
What about Landon Jackson's ACLs? You brought that up earlier this week.
That's more on health.
Yeah.
And I like him as a player.
Is that kind of like for you man, at 35, I don't know if I could do that. But if you traded back and picked up a 3rd round pick, and let's say you drafted him at 48, you'd be like, okay, maybe.
Yeah, that definitely could be something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would just kind of like, this is going to be, we got to know that this potentially could be an injury-prone player.
Yeah.
Now guys coming out, there's a lot of surgeries and injuries they've had, but when it's something of the same, especially ACL, and I know you can fix them easily and everything else, it's just, dang, man, 2 already?
Right.
Yeah. You almost say there's going to be a 3rd one. It's a matter, hopefully, we can get him through his first 4 years and then let him go.
Yeah.
let him go about his way.
Ryan in the chat said he's kind of out on Xavier Restrepo, the guy with Miami wide receiver that played primarily in a slide. He says he's
I
a guy
wouldn't take
that
him third round.
yeah, he's kind of a guy like he's kind of out on. I don't know what if he's out on Restrepo completely or whatever, but that's a guy that he mentions. An interesting one that I'm interested to ask Jory Epstein about, who we'll have on at 2:20 p.m. of Yahoo Sports. She says, or this guy says, the weatherman says Cam Scatabo. And what's interesting is that Charles Robinson, one of Jory's coworkers, wrote an article last night, news dumping everything they heard, emptying out the notebook, like they say. And he said that that's a player that people have really gotten cold on, is Cam Scatabo throughout the process. And he's likely to be there at day 3. And I know the Tennessee Titans brought him in for a 30 visit, probably check on medicals, because I think he was playing a little bit hurt and all that kind of stuff. We've talked about running back. Where does running back lean for you in terms of, would you draft him a running back? Is there a running back that could fall that you'd be like, okay, let's draft him now?
Well, where we're talking about drafting, where is he falling?
Wherever you think that if he...
Well, you're talking about a first-round guy that I got graded as a first round, he falls to the second round, then that's
right.
We may have
so what about Cam Scatabo, a third round, maybe graded player, and you're in the 5th or 6th round?
I would definitely consider him.
Okay.
There's some value in him in that he is tough, and I think it's infectious. So I like players like that. Some, organizations that's like, he's kind of, what is he? Is he an H-back? Is he a fullback? Is he a actual running back in the National Football League? Because I'd love to hear his numbers, but I'm going to probably bet that his numbers are going to just jump off the charts. And I'm talking about his 40s number. But there's something about certain guys.
Yeah, 4.65 at the pro day.
That you go, but, hey, man, we get him on our team. This guy is a tough son of a you-know-what. And so, 5th round, I take him all day. I like his manner. I just think he's a tough son of a gun. Like, those guys, don't count him out, man.
So he came from Sacramento State before transferring over to Arizona State.
Right. He had no offers but Sacramento State coming out.
And so he went there. He played 11 of 13 games in 2022, his second season with Sacramento State. Games started. So he played 13 games, started 11, went for 1,372 yards at 7 yards per attempt. Transferred to Arizona, started 7, played in 12, ended up with 783 yards and 9 touchdowns, 4.77 yards per carry. And then last year, full 13 games played, full 13 games started, 1,711 yards and 5.84 yards per carry, and 21 touchdowns. Very productive, but he is 5'9", 216 pounds. And kind of a slower 40, even though that is 216 pounds. When you take in the height, you're kind of like, I wish you had a little bit more speed.
Yeah. Well, let's first start off. Running back's not high on my list for the Titans to be drafted anyway. And I hate to say this because I love everything about Scatabo, but I think I can get a guy probably just a notch below him in free agency.
Yeah.
And so those are the tough decisions you got to talk him through, and what other values does he bring to the team, because, he can catch. Hey, this guy can catch now. He can, he can run some routes, get out of the backfield. And they want to, how much better is he than Chestnut?
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's what you're talking about here. And then you say, well, can I get another guy we don't have to draft? It could be just like that too.
Yeah.
And you may be able to find another guy. So I hate it because, boy, those are the guys that eventually find a way to be on a roster and be productive in some form or fashion. Don't count the guys out like that. That's a dangerous deal because he's got a chip on his shoulder.
Yep.
You could tell how he plays. He runs like his butt is on fire. I mean, I haven't seen guys run like him in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And,
he's a chore to tackle. Yeah. If I had to put in.
I kind of he's a poor man's Mike Allstott. You remember that guy?
Oh, yeah. I loves me some Mike Allstott from Tampa Bay.
I definitely didn't want to run butt heads with him. Good Lord. That's what I'm saying. That's what Scatabo is. You know that you got to, the day before
physical.
the game. Let me say this. Throughout the week is how I would build up, I got to get my mindset. There's going to be a one-on-one alley, and we're going to have to go to war. Yeah. And I am not going to back down. You have to talk yourself into that. If you wait to game day to think about that, you are in trouble.
So he can make you pay.
Yeah, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt. When you run down that alley, it's going to hurt. You better bring it because it's still going to hurt no matter what. So that's what he brings to the table. And I don't know if that's at the top of the list right now for the Titans as far as what they need at position. And could they go for some more toughness? Yes. But I just, wow, man, it's hard, man. When I saw him do the Heisman poll, I was like, then I looked up his number, like, man, who the heck is this dude? He kept doing it. I was like, wow. And I just don't know if it's going to translate his speed and what he'll be in the NFL.
It's almost like you're drafting. It's, you know who he kind of reminds me of, and we're going to get to you in just a second, Tony, is like when Tank Bigsby went way higher than I thought he should, the guy from Auburn who went to Jacksonville as the backup quarterback or backup running back. But it's kind of like, I look at it and I go, okay, Cam Scatterbo, like just goal line situations and short yardage situations. I'm not drafting. Like,
I can't do
I need
it.
a guy that can provide me a little bit more flexibility.
And special teams too, by the way.
Yeah. Let's go with Tony, who wants to talk about Cam Ward. Tony, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I just feel like Cam Ward's overrated. That's the one person I would not draft at 1 overall. I mean, if you can trade back and get him, that's perfect. But 1 overall, as many holes as we need, and it's the philosophy that this team is talking about drafting the best player available and not reaching for need. If you draft Cam Ward at 1, I feel like you're reaching for need. You're putting need over value because Cam Ward's the 10th, 11th best ranked player in the draft. I mean, I just don't. That's who I would avoid.
Who's your number 1 ranked player? Tony?
Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter, okay. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Let me ask you a question, Tony, before you go. What if it was instead of best player available, it was called best value available? Wouldn't you think that the 8th best player in this draft and that plays quarterback and he's the clear top quarterback in the NFL draft is worth the number 1 overall pick?
I don't know.
Something to think about, because this was a discussion we were going to have today, was about best value available. But it seems like to me, quarterback presents you the best value available in the draft.
See, you could also turn that around because, I mean, we've seen so many great quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford, for instance, in Detroit, he was on so many bad teams. But once he got to a team that was better around him, he was able to shine. If we draft Cam Ward at 1, are we putting Cam Ward in that similar situation? Because the team is just so bad. Now, how would you look at that? How would you rate the value of him at that position at number 1 overall based on the team?
Well, Matt Stafford in his 3rd year threw for 5,000 yards, 4th year threw for 4,900 yards, 5th year threw for 4,600 yards. Not to say that he wasn't on bad teams, I agree with you, but he still presented the Detroit Lions lots and lots of games, years, durability, and value for what they paid for him. And so I would have to say that I would still rock with Cam Ward right now because I do think until you have a quarterback, you don't have a quarterback. And I know that sounds like pretty duh. Thanks, Tony. But, like, at the end of the day, that's just kind of where it's at. Like, quarterback's the most important position in football. And according to the consensus boards, he is the 8th best player or 8th highest ranked player in the NFL draft. And if you're in the top 10 of players, because this is a really good class of other players, too, then you're probably the best value at 1 because you play the most important position. What do you got, Jackson?
I think if the Titans got Matthew Stafford level value out of Cam Ward, it would be it would be a wildly successful draft pick.
Yeah, and listen, there's a lot that the Lions did wrong, but drafting Matt Stafford at 1 overall was not one of them. What about you, Blaine?
Well, Matthew Stafford and him, to me, not even in the same conversation. Matthew Stafford is a super talented player.
Well, he's just talking. I guess what he's referring to is not player comp or anything. Right. He's saying that Matt Stafford got drafted into a bad situation, right. And so where was the value in Matt Stafford?
Yeah, I was going there, and that is because do the Titans have the weaponry and the support offensive line and actually also the defense and a running game to help support him in his growth? Because here's what's going to happen. We all know this. Being the number 1 pick, he's supposed to elevate every player on the team. Do you actually believe that the staff is equipped, let alone the players? Do they have supporting him around him good enough? And then guess what? Nobody's going to sit here and say, oh, he didn't have the supporting cast, they're going to say he's the number one pick. He should transform the whole organization. And I think that's a lot of weight to put on a player like this. And in a good quality year of a quarterback draft, he would be a first rounder by any means, but probably the third guy.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be interesting to see how much pressure will be put on him based off how he plays and what the supporting cast will be. Because right now he has no receivers. We still don't know if Moore is a legitimate left tackle.
Right.
I mean, and then we don't know how the offensive line is going to play, even with, we hope Latham will take another step at even right tackle. So there's a lot of questions to be answered, but the pressure's all going to go on him. And I'm not sure if he's ready yet until I see him play to be equipped to do that. And besides that, how they support him with the players around him.
Well, when we come back, we'll continue our discussion of best player available versus best value available. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here at 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. We've been talking about best player available versus best value available, and how that discussion ties to Cam Ward. But you just brought up a question. And this is, I guess, a question for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, Cam Ward's drafted. Do you trust the coaching staff in this front office to build around him?
Right. So we
Do
don't
you
know.
trust them to develop them? Do you trust that they're going to get the most?
That's the question I brought to you. I don't really know because I don't know this organization. I don't know if I trust the coaching staff. No, I definitely can't say that.
Do you think that people are buying into the coaching staff because keep Brian Callahan and them keep bringing up Joe Burrow and all these other big name quarterbacks?
It has nothing to do with that for me.
But do you think other people are buying into it for that?
Oh, well, I'm just giving my opinion. I don't know what other people buy into. I only buy into what I believe, and I believe that they didn't show any difference at quarterback when it was Mason Rudolph to Will Levis. The offense somewhat looked the same, and the results were the same. And I'm talking about turnovers from a veteran guy, Mason Rudolph, who is proven that he is a true backup quarterback, and the offense worked somewhat similar. We could talk about Will Levis's snafus, but Mason Rudolph did somewhat the same thing. So things didn't change to me, and the offense looked exactly the same, and they only averaged 18 points. Nothing changed. So I'm not sure if he can actually do that and improve with a younger player who hasn't played it down in the NFL.
Let me ask you this. So would you read into this situation then that because we've talked about...
Do you trust the coaching staff?
I'm kind of with you. I don't know. Like, I don't think they showed me anything last year that makes me believe that I can trust them right now. Now, maybe there's a little part of me that's still holding out hope into Brian Callahan. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Like, there's a lot of hope.
I do. I got a lot of hope.
And that's not just because I believed in Brian Callahan when he got hired. I like some of the stuff I've seen schematically. I like what he says at press conferences. It's also because I hope for Cam Ward's sake as well. But so that goes to my point, and this next question is, if you were to read into this, we've all kind of thought, I've been very blunt about it, his seat's really hot. Brian Callahan is. He's not starting off on day one, year one. This is, the temperature on his butt is flaming. And in that case, if you're the Titans regime, you have said that you're going to always do what's best. This Brinker and Bergonzi, I believe they both have said that they're going to do what's best for the franchise, future of the franchise. That must mean that they believe, regardless of Brian Callahan's existence, that Cam Ward is worth this number one overall pick, right? Is that how we should read into it? Because obviously you wouldn't draft a quarterback, and pair him with a coach if that coach was a lame duck. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like the Bears. The Bears all obviously believed in Caleb Williams regardless of Matt Eberflus.
Well, I think they're doing what they think is best for the organization, regardless of what Bill Callahan thinks or not.
Yeah.
I really believe that. I think they're doing what's best, and right now they believe he's a franchise quarterback, and there's one thing that never changes in the NFL. If you need a quarterback and you believe he's a franchise quarterback, you never pass up a franchise quarterback, if that's what they believe. Now, if, Bill Callahan can develop them is a whole nother story. So I'm interested to see. I'm excited about that. He potentially will be the number one pick. Obviously, as they were talking yesterday between the lines there, I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table and if he can actually develop it. And we got to look and see if he progresses from preseason to the regular season and each game by game, how much he improves. If I don't see any improvement, it's almost like then he's not the guy. And if I start, seeing that he's doing some of the same things people aren't bringing up either. Ball protection, still some snafus. He's confident in his ability, but will that get shaken once he makes mistakes? And it's going to happen. There's no way.
I got someone in the chat. Kent says, I'm the only person saying Callahan is on the hot seat. Brinker and Burke Nighthill both have said that Callahan's on the hot seat. Remember when they got hired, they put him on notice and that he has to be better. This was unacceptable.
Yeah. Well, he's even saying that himself. I mean, I don't know if that's coach speak, but I think, you're not the only one. I mean, everybody's saying that, but it's like, did they keep him because the owner said keep him?
That was the other question that popped up during this whole time. And so at the end of the day, I mean, I think you would be kind of, I always call it ostriching because, ostriches stick their head in the sand. So you would have to be almost ostrogene
Where's Bert when we need him?
Yeah, this whole year and a half to not think that Callahan isn't on the hot seat.
Oh, yeah.
He's a 3-14 coach.
Yeah, he knows that too. And sometimes, when you get backed into that corner, you come out fighting. You're a lot more creative, and
And like I said, I'm rooting for him, but
I
we
am
have to
too.
be realistic about how the NFL works.
No, I love his personality. I'm hoping that he is the guy to get the Titans and Cam. I am praying that he is, because he's a great guy, and I just hope he's had some success. If not, this may be his last chance to even be a head coach, to be honest.
Right. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, when you don't get the shot, you may never get the shot again. That happens all the time with general managers. The coaches tend to kind of overcome that a little bit, but sometimes it takes years to be able to overcome. I mean, Chip Kelly's, got his head coaching job. He's just now back in the NFL after what, 15, 20 years, it feels like. I mean, that was like 2006, 7, last time he was here. So almost 20 years he's back in the NFL. So I look at it and I go, it's hard to do. But this regime is saying they're doing stuff what's best for the franchise, not what's best for now, what's best for the franchise for sustained success. And they believe, the decision makers believe, and I don't know what level of influence Brian Callahan has. If you were to make me put a bet, very little. Voices heard, not a lot of power behind the voice. But I'm looking at it and I go, okay, this regime believes in Cam Ward. At least that says something about how they view Cam Ward as a prospect. Now, do I think that Cam Ward is number 1 overall on their board? Probably not. I would say it's Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
But I do think because he plays quarterback, that presents a different value and a different discussion when it comes about best player available / best value available.
Well,
And I think
one thing is clear: he's the number 1 quarterback in this
easy.
draft.
I mean, from everybody else's perspective. I may
yes.
not
From
agree with
other
it, but from
teams.
everybody else's perspective.
Right. I get why they say that, but yeah, it is going to be interesting though. I'm excited though. I'm hoping it all works out.
Listen, if anything, once the first round is over, now it becomes exciting. Like right now, I'm a little bored. I need some excitement in my life. There's not been any NFL trades. But once the first overall pick is done, that's when the draft kind of starts, and then we're getting excited. Then we got the second round pick. We're gonna have a lot of questions answered about this team.
Well, I'm still at 95%, by the way.
I'm still thinking that it's trading?
Not yet, because guess what? You never know until that pick is in.
That is true. But
They said they're closed, but
Yeah.
I think it's still open.
It's still open. Well, we'll talk more about that when we come back. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Never say. For many of you who have lived here a long time, you already know Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee area for your European car repair needs now for 26 years. And we've all got them, watch them grow. And I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off. Well, we're now proud to announce the 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from Dairy Queen. And Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in the barn of his backyard of a single-wide trailer and now grow to 5 locations, repairing thousands of cars each month. And at Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But always don't blaze at you.
It is 2:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. The NFL Draft is just one day away, and the Titans held their pre-draft press conference yesterday, where General Manager Mike Bergonzi had this to say about any trade rumors surrounding the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, no, we've come to a consensus. The entire organization is to stay at that pick, and I guess you'll find out Thursday night who we pick.
In other NFL news, the league announced today that the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Chargers will face off in this year's Hall of Fame game on July 31st during the annual Hall of Fame induction weekend. The NBA playoffs continue as the Memphis Grizzlies have fallen behind 2-0 in their series with the Oklahoma City Thunder, losing last night 118-99. The Grizz look to try and pull within one game as they return to Memphis for Game 3. Tip-off is tomorrow at 8 p.m. For our foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. 615-737-1045 is the number, and the question is, who's the player that you're really scared of that you don't want the Tennessee Titans to draft? Call in with that answer if you want. We had one earlier, and it was from Stoney on the F&M Bank chat, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. He said Caleb Johnson. It was a running back for Iowa.
Yeah,
He's because Iowa runs so much zone, the Tennessee Titans do not, and he's just really scared of that scheme fit.
Yeah, well, I think that'd be a great fit for Mike Vrabel.
There you go. There you go. If you will indulge me for a second, I'd like to maybe talk about some my guys in the draft. Because I put out a list this morning, and there's just some players that I'd be like, if I was in the war room, Blaine, I'd pound the table for one of these guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's always an interesting way to kind of look at it, is like these kind of the opposite of what we just talked about. These are the guys that I would be like, man, I would love to have this guy in two-tone blue. Nothing's to say that they are interested in the guy or not. But I look at it and I go, this is a guy that I would stand up on the table for. Trey, in the second round, I would be highly interested in Trey Harris, JT Tuimoloau, and Trey Amos. 2 Ole Miss players, surprisingly enough, on that list, but I think Trey Amos is one of the best press corners in this draft, so I think he's a really good fit. I think that would allow you to maybe have some flexibility with what you do with Jarvis Brownlee Jr., L'Jarius Sneed, and or Roger McCreary in some form of combination of moving pieces around. I've talked about JT. I think JT is one of those guys that I think, have you ever heard of the term prospect fatigue? I think he suffers from that. I think because everybody was talking about him 2 years ago, even though he's put together good seasons, they've just kind of gotten bored with him. And then Trey Harris, we've talked about Trey Harris on this show a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about wide receivers and how everybody's talking about his route running, but if they went to his 2022 tape with Louisiana Tech, you would see very little stuff he's got work on, but very little concern that he can't run the whole route tree.
Yeah, that's what I informed you of that.
You did. You did.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting because I was thinking just like on that line, like, man, he's only run a couple routes here. Let's see what you could see his size, and he was a former quarterback.
Yeah.
I kind of like where he's at. He still doesn't have the bend action that I really want to see like I do out of Higgins. But I think the potential and upside is there. You see the good run after catch. You see him changing direction somewhat for a tall wide receiver. So, no, I wouldn't be opposed to any of those guys. I don't know about Amos. I haven't dug into him at cornerback, but I don't know. Is that a little too high? Where are they having him rated?
38 overall. So that's a little high, but not too high.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know,
He's in the range.
and I was kind of looking up these are players whose tapes really stood out to me. And I think those 3 players, I know that you were a big Jaden Higgins guy, if you want to just refresh to people on why you like Jaden Higgins.
Well, I just like his size. I thought he could play multiple positions, whether it's X, Y, or Z. be in the slot. He has some toughness. He had wiggle to him. At a 6'4" guy who could get down and run routes like he was a 5'11" guy. Those guys are very rare. I would give him comparables to Mike Evans. And when I say that, it's because how he looks and how he runs. He had good run after the catch. And then you could get to see is actually even his own teammate there. What's his name? Neil? What's his last name? Neil?
Noel.
Noel, yeah. The shorter guy who was a speed guy. But he's a straight line guy. And for a 5'11", 5'10" guy, I want to see more wiggle. So he actually ran routes like he was the 6'4" guy. So he was off the board for me because I think he could be more of an outside guy or a vertical threat guy if you run your offense where you're kind of more vertical threatening, which a lot of offenses are doing now. So I just liked I just loved everything about him. He's a versatile player, and I like versatile players at their position. So I liked him a lot. I'm probably overvaluing them more than others. But especially, just because he went to Iowa State, some people were not looking at him that way maybe. But, yeah, he was pretty impressive. I liked him over McMillan over Arizona.
The consensus has him as 45th overall, but that's the 5th wide receiver, which is kind of crazy. Wide receivers this year have been a little, I guess, devalued a little bit in the sense of normally your 5th wide receiver would be a little bit higher up on the consensus big board. So it's just very interesting. I'm so interested to see how this wide receiver class actually takes shape because there's people that think that Kyle Williams, the guy from Washington State, the 5'11" guy that played primarily X receiver for their offense, they think that he's going to go in the 2nd round. And I'm like, I still see borderline 3rd round ability, but this wide receiver class is going to be really interesting to watch.
Well, I think it's in the meat of the draft. I think there's a lot of capable guys who are contributors or even starters there. And I think Kyle Williams on the right team could be there. Like the Titans had, I think he could compete immediately to get some playing time. I think blue chippers, I think that's why you're saying that there's not a high level of blue chippers like we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
There's, 2 or 3 guys, and then after that, it kind of tapers down, and they're all kind of, it's about your preference of players you like and all kind of in that group together. I think Higgins is probably one of those guys. That's why I think he may not be there because if those top 3 guys go in the draft early by 15, then you go, that's going to elevate where he's going to go next and other players as well. So it'll be interesting. That's why I was asking Coach Mack, who or what position group do you think in this year's draft will go? There'll be a run of players because what happens is, staffs of other organizations start getting a little spooked that they can't get their guy, and so then it starts elevating all the guy and go, our guy's probably not going to be there. And so then you start reaching, or you say, well, we'll sit pat and we'll take another position group.
Do you have immediate reactions when the draft happens? Like when a draft pick comes through, or are you like, man, that was way too high for that player, or that's way too low. I can't believe that guy lasted that long. Like if the Tennessee Titans were to select Kyle Williams at 35 overall, that is quite the reach, according to the consensus board. He's the 90th overall prospect, and that's typically where he's at across most boards, but 90th overall prospect, and you're drafting him at 35. What is your initial reaction in those kinds of situations? Because everybody has to have a reaction or tends to have a reaction. I mean, is yours just like a wait-and-see approach because you've been in, you played football before and you know that sometimes just different teams have different needs and different fits and different prototypes?
Yeah. I usually kind of approach it that way. I would still say, could they have gotten him in the 3rd? Oh, we don't have a 3rd. Maybe that's why they took him, at least as of today. And so, maybe if you like a guy and you're passionate about him and you think he fits what you guys do, hey, man, I'm all for it. So I'm always a waiting approach and see, what can he actually do and bring to the table? Because it's one thing the Titans had to have for a long time. They haven't had this at the receiver, a guy who could just make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Like that. Those are rare guys, but the Titans, I just feel like never really have had like that guy like that. Like, oh, man, like these jitterbuggy guys who you couldn't even catch him in a square peg. I mean, I want that guy, and then just he takes off, and then he's explosive like that. I mean, I mean, we had CJ2K like that at running back, but I just can't recall us getting a receiver like
Because
that.
like A.J. Brown was a different kind of
Yeah,
speed.
he
It's like
was
he could
different.
take a slant really far
Right,
and
right.
cross over the middle, but he was never that guy that would just Sean Jackson you.
Well, I'm talking about making people miss that.
Yeah.
It's like there's no way out, and he finds a way out.
Yeah.
Not the vertical threat guy. I'm talking about the guy who can take it vertical,
Yeah.
but through making everybody miss. Kind of a la like a returner. Like when you see the returner just weaving his way,
Yeah.
you go, oh my God, man, that's incredible. Well, I want a guy like that at receiver. I want a guy like that. When Callahan throws
Kinda like
that
Antonio Brown.
3rd and 5, and you throw the swing pass that's
Yeah.
behind the line of scrimmage, he makes a guy miss it. Zoom, he's to 15 yards.
Kind of like Antonio Brown. A little
Somewhat,
bit like
somewhat.
that. Because he was a returner, and then he turned into a
was.
really good wide
Right
receiver, and
player.
he was kind of like that. But I agree with you. I mean, the Tennessee Titans, they have Calvin Ridley, who does already provide you deep speed.
Yes, he does.
I kind of want the speed of the guy, kind of like Tez Johnson at the Senior Bowl. I don't know if you remember the Oregon
Oh,
wide
yeah,
receiver,
yeah.
155 pounds, and I kept saying this dude's leaving people in the dust
Yeah.
every which way possible.
Yeah, there was no doubt about it. He
But
was
he's so
impressive.
small.
Right. You worried
So-
about injury concerns, just
Yeah.
like the kid from the Texans that drafted
Right.
from U of H. And those guys are really good players, but their wear and tear of their body, being 155, 165
Right.
pounds in the National Football League, just usually doesn't
Already
carry a lot
seen
of weight.
problems with Tank Dell.
Yeah, so I'm talking about, the
Yeah.
Texans guy. So it's just unfortunate because he looked explosive and somewhat like that. He was somewhat like that, at least at the receiver position. So, got to be careful. Usually those guys are built stockier and more converted running back guys who then, learn the route tree and become receivers and slot guys that are somewhat, jitterbuggy like that. So, I'd love to see that, man.
I think I've landed to the point where it's like I've gotten
I think
whiplash
Luka
recently.
Burden has somewhat of that. I don't
Right.
think at 35 he's going to be
Yeah.
there, but he may.
He may.
Now, if he's available, I am all in. They may not be,
Yeah,
but
I don't think
am.
they are.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I don't think they are. I will
Well,
say
why
this.
are they not?
I don't know.
Why are they not?
But the vaunted off-field issues, maybe.
Oh,
Oh, those
They can't-
those silly concerns.
Here's my whole thing when we start saying stuff
Yeah.
like that. You came from Andy Reid. That never bothered Andy Reid for
Yep.
vaunted rumor mill.
quote unquote non-football issues.
Right. Remember? Oh, we're going to put out his practice tapes. They want to see his practice. I didn't see anything wrong with any of his practice tapes.
Yeah.
I didn't see no loafing, no nothing. I saw him getting after dudes and guys getting like, dang, man, I can't guard him.
Yeah.
I didn't see no loafing and jogging around. I ain't see it.
I got this feeling about how they feel. Whether I agree with it or I definitely don't agree with it, by the way. When we come back, we'll be joined by senior reporter for Yahoo Sports, Jory Epstein, who actually has a article out right now. 2025 NFL Draft from wing T to favorite for number one overall pick. History says Cam Ward shouldn't be here. It's a nice little write-up about Cam Ward. It's covered, too, with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Struggling with joint pain, suffering from a recent injury, looking to recover faster after surgery? Well, at Edge, we've got you covered. From powerful peptide stacks like BPC 157 to TB 500 to PRP treatment, stem cell therapy, and high film muscle stimulation, Edge Peptide is your go-to solution for faster healing and recovery. And as an athlete myself, I know how frustrating pain and injuries can be. That's why now is the perfect time to take control of your wellness and finally address those nagging issues. Whether it's golf, tennis, or any activity you love, don't let pain hold you back any longer. Edge specializes in regenerative treatments designed to reduce inflammation, promote tissue repair, and improve mobility, helping your body heal naturally while avoiding surgery whenever possible. And right now, we're offering a free $250 consultation with your initial treatment. And all you have to do is just go to edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com. Or you can give them a call today at 615-724-1878. That's 724-1878.
Two Rivers Ford announces employee pricing for everyone. Every tradesman, every dad, every rising star. You pay what we pay. Two Rivers Ford. Locally owned. American made.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. But right now we're going to the phones. We're going to go to Jory Epstein. Welcome, Yahoo Sports. We're going to, sorry, I got a little flustered there for a second because I was just making sure I said everything right. But Jory Epstein of Yahoo Sports, senior NFL reporter and co-host of the Inside Coverage Show. You can catch Jory's coverage on Yahoo Sports Draft Live, which is streaming for the first 3 rounds on the Yahoo Sports website and app, coming up for the draft coverage this week. And Jory also wrote a fantastic article that I read this morning called 2025 NFL Draft from Wing T to favorite for number 1 overall pick. History says Cam Ward shouldn't be here. And Jory, thanks for coming in. Just want to start off. What did you learn from Eric Morris, who recruited Patrick Mahomes, has coached Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum, and Davis Webb before he became the Incarnate Word head coach?
Absolutely, Blaine, Zach, thanks for having me on. And I really enjoyed this feature on Cam Ward and reporting it because obviously, anyone who makes it to the first overall pick is defying odds in some way. So many players want to make it there and don't. But typically, you're talking about guys who are throwing the ball lights out in high school, are throwing it, 20, 30 times a game, could be more. Really, their film in high school as a passer is what's getting them to the opportunity in college and then the NFL. And that was not the case for Cam Ward. So I talked to Eric Morris, currently the head coach at North Texas. At the time when he recruited Cam Ward, he was at Incarnate Word. And Cam Ward shows up to his camp in the summer 2019 and is just lighting it up, ripping the ball, in Eric's words. And then he goes back to the tape and he's like, wait, this guy barely throws the ball. What's going on? And Cam Ward played at a high school where they ran the wing T, 3 running backs on the field at a time. And his junior year, they were running it 3 times as often as passing it. And by senior year, that was 4 times as often as they were passing the ball. And so really, it's just so unlikely that someone who is not even using his arm at the high school level is going to be now asked to do it, presumably with the first overall pick for Tennessee.
Well, it's interesting because you have a little nugget in here about Cam Ward's mom approaching the football head coach about this decision not to pass the ball. Can you tell the people a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Cam Ward's mom, Patrice, was the longtime basketball coach at his high school. Now his sister has taken over for his mom. So definitely a lot of coaching and athleticism running in the family here. And it was funny because Cam's dad, Calvin, I was like, didn't you ever ask the coach, hey, why aren't you letting my kid throw the ball? And he was like, well, my wife was a basketball coach, and I saw these parents who would come to her, and I was like, I don't want to be that parent. And then Patrice, the coach who was receiving those parents, goes, oh, yeah, I talked to him. I was working with him. And I'm like, why? And she felt like they weren't being honest about the potential that Cam had. So she goes to them, and Cam's like, Mom, just stop. Like, let me take care of this. I want to stay here. So he didn't transfer like some people would have, and he didn't really fight to throw it. I mean, look, he passed less his senior year, and they went from 5-4 to 9-1 that year. So they definitely were improving, and it wasn't actually a bad decision for the team. It was just extremely unhelpful to Cam's recruiting. And the other thing I'll say that I loved about Patrice, this didn't make the story, is Eric Morris told me a great story about when they went to the Ward household to recruit Cam, and his mom got on him because he did not set the table correctly. So there's definitely a coaching level, discipline, and accountability in the Ward household.
Blaine likes that one. When we're talking about his transition from Incarnate Word to Washington State and then from Washington State to Miami, you wrote in here that the third on road to top pick, Ward's third school was the charm. Just talk about that transition from each school going into Miami.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Incarnate Word, he's lighting it up, setting these records, which is crazy because not only was he coming in with an incumbent who had been a freshman All-American, but he had never played in a spread offense before. It helped Cam a little bit that he got there during COVID. Their fall season was canceled, so he had a few extra months to pick it up. But even when the coaches thought they had the arm talent, they expected him to be a 2-year developmental project because it just takes time for someone to learn a new system. Instead, he learns it well there. He follows Eric Morris to Washington State when Eric Morris was the offensive coordinator. And before we get to Miami, I think what's interesting about all of these jumps is I talked to general managers and scouts around the league, and they love that these quarterbacks are transferring. I mean, last year, 8 of the 11 quarterbacks drafted had transferred during their college careers. And this year, all 5 quarterbacks on Yahoo Sports 75-player big board have transferred. And a lot of that's because teams are able to see them at a different level. They're able to get more reps. Obviously, less quarterback play than ability for like 3 receivers on the field or 3 running backs if you're in the wing T, which nobody is in the NFL. But I think that what you see here is each time he is adjusting to a new system, new coaching staff, and new players, and he's still winning. Miami was interesting because Cam Ward actually declared for the draft a year ago. I think some people know that, but not everyone remembers it right now. And then Quandre Diggs, who's been a safety in the NFL, he was on the Titans last year. We'll see if he gets to come back with cousin Cam this year. But Quandre and Cam are cousins. And he told Cam, he's like, look, if you go in and you're a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick, well, you're going to be getting scout team reps. You're not going to be getting reps with the stars. They're not going to invest in you in the same way. You should come as finished a product as you can so you can get that 1st round draft pick, and then the team invests in your growth in a different way. And now we've seen that's what Cam did after a year at Miami.
We're talking to Jory Epstein, Yahoo Sports senior NFL reporter and co-host of the Inside Coverage Show on Yahoo Sports.
Yeah, Jory, this is Blaine here. Thanks for coming on. I guess all that to be said about Cam Ward, and that is, it seems like he doesn't, I don't know if it's the Titans per se, but I don't feel all the hype leading up to the draft, which is tomorrow, like, let's say, Caleb Williams had when he was the first pick of the draft. What are your thoughts on what I'm saying there? Am I offbeat there?
Absolutely. I think there's 2 elements of this. There's what it means in this draft and how it compares to last draft. In this draft, whether people like it or not, Shedeur Sanders is the quarterback getting the attention. And by the way, I believe Cam Ward really likes that. I talked to Quandre about this. I met with him, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now. And everyone in Cam's family just kept telling me how private a guy he is. He doesn't want to do interviews if he doesn't have to. He doesn't want to do commercials. He just wants to play football, play with his dog, go fishing, all of those things. And I was like, I feel like it sounded like he would love the Shedeur Sanders element. And Quandre said, absolutely. He wants to fly under the radar, and he wants someone else to be getting the headlines while he just goes and plays on the field. So part of that is that he's not out there. He also didn't hire an agent as of now other than his father. And so it's not like you have the agent getting a certain narrative out there. And as it compares to last year's draft class, no, people are not saying that Cam Ward has the same upside that they felt like Caleb Williams did a year ago. But the people who are saying that Cam Ward would have gone after all the 1st-round picks last year are just wrong. I asked 4 different teams yesterday, 2 AFC, 2 NFC, and I said, how does your grade on Cam Ward compare to what your grades were on last year's quarterbacks? And I had one NFC tell me that Cam would have been 3rd right after Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, so that's above Drake May. And then 2 told me he would be right after Drake May, so still above Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and J.J. McCarthy, but 4 out of, I guess it was like 6 first-rounders. And then I had another who told me he's right around there with Drake May. Technically, they do it buckets by year, and then you go year by year and rank them. But all of this is to say he does compare favorably to last year, even if he doesn't have the college career that Caleb Williams has. And I'll also say, like, Bo Nix a year ago, not getting the hype. Look what he did in Denver. Jaden Daniels, he got some hype, but it wasn't the Caleb Williams hype. Well, who would have been a rookie year? So I don't think all this correlates, even if I completely agree with you that the hype is not there. And it's a little bit curious because we really don't see guys fly under the radar in this kind of way when they're a quarterback in the 1st round, much less the likely 1st overall pick.
Well, we're talking about somebody not missing out on the hype, and you said it. Shedeur Sanders is getting a lot of hype, just talking about the draft in general. There's a lot of talk that he may fall in this draft. What are your thoughts and what are you hearing from the pundits there in the NFL about, Shedeur Sanders is going to drop in this draft?
For sure. I think part of the drop is drop from where? So much of this is what the media market and all of us are part of this are creating. But I think if you're saying, Shedeur was going to be going to the Browns or Giants at 2 or 3, then yes, right. I expect him to go lower than that. I think that it's an interesting draft because sometimes we see all the top draft pickers needing a quarterback, not always. And this year, the Titans, the Browns, and the Giants all have major questions at quarterback, and there are a couple others later on. I think that the second half of the 1st round seems like the most likely place for Shedeur. He could fall into the 2nd, but I think whether it's Pittsburgh at 21 or you see someone like the Browns or the Giants trading back into the second half of the 1st round, to me, those seem like the most likely landing spots. I know there was curiosity about whether the Saints would take a 9th overall. I just think when you look at Kellen Moore in his first year as head coach there, you got to first say, well, do you even have the guys to support a quarterback anyway? And if not, why are you starting your clock on when ownership is expecting you to win? So I think a team that can get someone else with their first overall pick, unless you're Steelers, have that talent there, and then have a little more time to have a quarterback develop, that's probably what you want if you're Shedeur Sanders.
Hey, let's have a little bit of fun here. I know there's been a lot of talk from some of the Dolphins players that may get traded, Jalen Ramsey being one of them. He's from Tennessee, Nashville, by the way, and Tyreek Hill. If you had to choose which one of those guys are going to get traded on draft day, which one do you think it'll be?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jalen Ramsey. I think that Tyreek Hill created a lot of stir in the last game of the year, and I was at that Jets-Dolphins game because we didn't know if it was going to be Aaron Rodgers last game, so I went to the stadium. And he said some things in the heat of the moment, but in retrospect, afterwards, everyone has kind of tried to stay away from it. Jalen Ramsey, they've made very clear, like, they plan to trade him. They do not plan to continue with him. I think that, to me, the case for trading Tyreek Hill falls because even if you believe the Dolphins are in a soft rebuild and have a lot of questions, you cannot admit that if you're the head coach and general manager that less than a year, I mean, it's been like 9-10 months since you re-signed Tua Tagovailoa to a massive deal, and now you're going to give away a big receiver. He's not Patrick Mahomes. Most quarterbacks do need that star receiver to be able to have success, and that's not a knock on the quarterback. And so I think that to re-sign the quarterback and then try and retool on the other front would give me a lot of questions about conflicting timelines the organization thinks it's in.
Great stuff there. Lastly, I got to ask you this, though. The Aaron Rodgers saga still continues. Like, what's going to happen here? Give us your bold prediction.
Yeah, I think my bold prediction is that I don't know if he'll retire, but if he does, I say we find out tomorrow, morning of the draft. The draft is in Green Bay. We know he would like to stick it to Green Bay anytime he can to get a little more attention. And, oh, by the way, it's not been that long since the morning of the draft he said he wanted out of Green Bay. And I was like, wait, it's the draft, and all we're doing is talking about Aaron Rodgers in the middle of April. And, by the way, he was still under contract. So why not happen again? So we'll see, but it wouldn't shock me.
Yuri Epstein, Yahoo Sports senior NFL reporter, co-host of the Inside Coverage.
Jory, you know, I've seen a lot of people say that the Denver Broncos may trade up for a wide receiver or even a running back. I mean, I'm not really big on this wide receiver class anyway. It feels like one could fall them 20 that would fit the needs without having to trade up. But trading up for a running back in today's economy, is that a smart move?
It's a great question. I think what you have to ask yourself is, did we think that drafting Bo Nix 12th overall in last year's economy was a good move? I mean, he was the first time in NFL history that 6 quarterbacks came off the board in the first 12 picks. And we questioned Sean Payton, and what did Sean Payton do? He had identified a quarterback he liked. He knew how to scheme him, and he knew how to call plays for him. So I don't know that they'll need to trade up to get these guys, but if Sean Payton has a vision for it, he's one of the coaches I would most believe. I mean, even coaches like Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, who are great coaches, have not shown the ability to identify talent, scheme, and call plays, all 3 of those, in the way that Sean Payton did with Bo Nix last year. And so I think that, I've got to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
When I look at a prospect like James Pierce. Lately, he started off heading into the college season as like one of the top 5 picks. Some mock drafts even had number 1 overall. Then he started slowly falling down the draft boards. Then you get into this kind of last month, he's been floating around the 60s, and then today and yesterday, I see him being floated out there as he's not going to make it past the Atlanta Falcons unless Mike Green is there. But, like, where is James Pierce going to land in this draft, do you think?
It's a great question. I think that you can ask what James Pierce has done. You also have to ask, how is this draft for defensive linemen? Because last year we had a draft where there were a bunch of quarterbacks, there were a bunch of offensive linemen, receiver was a pretty good year. And then we get to this year, and I wish I had the exact numbers, but I was talking to a scout who told me that they had, I think it was 27 defensive linemen in their top 100 graded players compared to something like 7 receivers, or maybe it was even less than that, 4 or 5. So I say that to say that even if you end up getting pushed down, I think it's less necessarily about you and more just that there are so many guys. First of all, a lot of guys at the position are playing well. And second of all, you might not have to be to draft them first round, because if you have a lot of defensive linemen, you're still going to have 6 good options in the second round compared to some of these positions like receiver that you might not have that same option because of the supply.
You also wrote an article, NFL Draft, as Cam Ward tops yet another class of transfer quarterbacks. UCLA bound Nico, and his future looks wide open. Draft quarterback data gives more proof that Nico's pro chances are fully intact after split from Tennessee. Talk about what the NFL and how they view the transfer and the scheme fits for these quarterbacks that are transferring.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's easy to say, oh, why is this guy chasing the money? What's the loyalty? What's the competitive edge? Does he care about football? And if you're Tennessee or if you're the program losing the kid, of course you're going to say that. But when I talk to NFL evaluators, they are not concerned. Even the ones who are like, I want to be concerned about this, admitted to me that they know that's an old-fashioned way to think about it. The reality is, as I said earlier in this interview, the top 5 quarterbacks in this year's draft transferred at some point. 8 of 11 quarterbacks drafted last year transferred at some point. Now, not all of that was for money, and a lot of that was for opportunity. But I think when it comes down to it, that quarterbacks are going to have more of a challenge if they have to adapt to new people and new offensive systems in a trade, or not in trade, in a transfer. But if they succeed, NFL teams say, okay, not only do we get to see what you've done on film, but also we get to see how you adapt. And, oh, by the way, if you're someone like Bo Nix, well, in his first stop, the offense he was running wasn't what they wanted to run at the NFL level. At the second stop, they came up with some new concepts. So Sean Payton told me that he was able to look at what he did at both stops and say, okay, these parts of my offense are not going to be in Bo Nix's favor, and these other parts are. So it actually just gives them a lot of data with which to build the best system for the player to succeed.
Okay, I'm a guy that loves conspiracy theories, okay? So there's one that's popped up that I've seen that you, Jason, Fitz, and Frank Schwab have talked about recently, and that's the Saints' long-term plan, or maybe possible long-term plan, a what if you will, is that the Saints decide to pass on Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, and the other quarterbacks because they're going to go for Arch Manning in next year's draft class, another Manning in New Orleans. I love it. Talk a little bit about it.
On one hand, the crazy part of this is that no team should be staking everything on one player in the future who has not yet shown it at the college level. And, oh, by the way, you might not get him because you have to lose so many games to feel really certain you can be sure you want him, and you don't want to do that in the first year of the head coach. On the other hand, do I think the Saints have legitimate interest in Arch Manning as a long-term plan? Absolutely. Do I think that drafting a quarterback next year is probably better for their team timeline than I do for this year? I do think so, and I can tell you there are absolutely people in that organization who are having conversations about this. The question is how realistic it is, but if I think that they would love for it to happen, I do.
Last question. The Tennessee Titans have the 3rd overall pick in the 2nd round, and there's been a lot of talk about, quarterbacks being drafted ahead of them. Maybe they all fall and there's a trade partner. What are you hearing about the back end of that 1st round and the top of that 2nd round about the quarterbacks in this draft class, and how many do you think could go before the Titans are on the clock at 35?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we would probably see 2 to 4 off the board before then, and I think that some of that could be at the very beginning of the 2nd round, but I do expect Cam to be gone by then. I expect Shedeur Sanders to be gone by then, and I would say of the Tyler Shuck, Jackson Dart, that whole group, probably 1 to 2. And so I think that, hey, if you're the Titans and you get number 1 pick and you're all set and ready to go, if there's something that you can give to someone to help, I mean, Mike Borgonzi, your general manager, said yesterday, we've got 8 picks right now, but that doesn't mean that they're going to have 8 at the end of all of this. And so I definitely think there could be some opportunity.
Real quick. Did you get any insight on if Cam Ward's the number 1 pick, will he try to wear the jersey number 1?
That is a great question. I would say the best insight I have for you is that his dog is named Uno. So it would probably be in his dog's best interest for him to get there.
Wait, what kind of dog is it, by the way?
Oh, man, you're
a Labradoodle.
Girl, that question.
It's not a French bulldog?
Yeah, there's pictures online. I'm so not a dog person, but I know that one of the things I kept having people tell me in this interview process, Cam's really private, so people get a lot wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, then you need to tell me something about him or I'm going to get it wrong too. So tell me what you want to get right. And then they had very little to say. But one of the things is that he loves his dog, and his dog is named Uno. So
I love it. Love it.
So that's about what I got for y'all.
We've been talking to Jory Epstein of Yahoo Sports, NFL reporter, and co-host of the Inside Coverage Show. You can catch Jory's coverage on Yahoo Sports Draft Live, which is streaming for the first 3 rounds on the Yahoo Sports website and app Thursday and Friday. Jory, we've had a blast. Maybe we'll talk to you after the draft.
Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely. Great to talk to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Jory. When we come back, I do want to ask about this whole Warren Moon number 1 situation to blame. But also, I promised yesterday that I would tell a draft story about Des Fitzpatrick. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone. Number 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here. 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. Uno is a Rottweiler, for those that may have still been curious. Uno is a Rottweiler, Cam Ward's dog. He's a dog dad, so, gotta give him props for that. Okay, so real quick.
Wait, Uno, since Uno, so is he going to wear 1 or 7?
Well, that's what I was about to ask you, is that how do you feel about retirement jerseys in general? Should you even ask the guy? And this goes for any sport, but obviously there's some things like Kobe Bryant is like retired everywhere in the NBA, stuff like that. So like do you, in this case, we're obviously talking about Warren Moon, but do you think that it's rude of him to ask for the number 1, to wear number 1, even if it's already been reported by, I think in one of Warren Moon's tweets that he'd be okay with it if he asked. He never said he'd give it to him, but you can ask.
Well, I'd look at it like this. The organization, first of all, most organizations don't have many numbers retired. So first and foremost, if someone asked me if I'm the owner, I would say, if you want to be special here, how would you ever be able to do that with the number 1?
Because would you even want one as a player?
See, that's what I want to say. Okay, so if I went to the 49ers, I asked for Ronnie Lott's number.
Yeah.
I mean, but I don't think they'd be like, So that's how I view it.
Yeah.
And I go, how about making your own name and your own number for when you set all the records here and you outlast the records of Warren Moon with a different number.
I guess that's kind of how I look at it, too.
And then he wore 7 at Washington State, so he's wore some different numbers, too.
I mean, stay away from 8. I wouldn't do 10. And I think you're golden after that.
Well, who's 8?
8 was Marcus.
Oh.
Yeah. Not for... it's just bad luck.
I got you. Okay.
8, 10, bad luck. I would stay away from those.
What were your thoughts there, Jackson? You got any on retired jerseys?
I mean, I probably wouldn't ask. I'd probably just go with whatever's available.
So, I mean, okay, let's say they retire 23 in a few years over at Tennessee.
That would never happen.
Okay, if someone came and asked you for 23...
Oh, and naturally, every player is going to say that they would, you could wear my number.
Oh, yeah?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think, because you'd love to see, especially a retired guy, especially an elite player would say, dang, I'd love to see my number back out there at some point in time. But at the same time, the other person, to me, if I'm sitting in their shoes, I wouldn't want a retired jersey's number because I want to set my, my own number, really. I was 22. By the way, they didn't ask me what number I wanted. They just gave me.
Just gave it to you?
And I just said, thank you.
Yeah.
Then somebody actually had 22 on the team at the time. So.
Well, speaking of why you may have said thank you, I was on 3HL yesterday to open up the show, and I have never heard of your draft story.
Oh.
So he told me it was a pretty, funny draft story. So I would like to hear.
Well, he didn't learn it. Who's he?
Brent Doherty. Sorry.
So he must have listened to the draft story on the thing because I never said it.
I don't know if you've maybe told him at some point or something. I would like to hear your draft story.
Well, what did he say about my draft story?
He said that you were somewhere else on campus and you just gave up.
Oh, I was. Well, actually, I thought I was going to go around 4th, 5th round, and I was a middle round guy. And the Oilers called me in round 5 and said they were probably going to take me. I think they were debating on me and someone else. They ended up taking the other person, and come to find out it was a return guy. And when they didn't draft me, I left at that point in time because I started seeing guys go, and I was pretty realistic where I would go, pretty honest with if somebody was better than me or not. And the guys that were going for that, they were higher rated and they were better than me. So when being guys that weren't and I'd never heard of, I'll start, I think I need to go study for this quiz I got tomorrow. So me and my buddies all went our separate ways of our roommates. And then I went to the library. I was at the Bracken Library and studying for a test. And then they called me back and said, hey, we're going to take you. I said, hey, Floyd Reese. I said, hey, you guys did that last time, and I'm at the library right now. They said, no, we're going to select you this time. Just get home and see it on the ticker because you're going to miss, being there. I said, okay, cool. So I left and then saw it on the ticker when I got home.
Well, speaking of draft stories,
Yeah, that was my draft story. I don't. That was boring, but
No, I liked it. I liked it.
But I was studying because I knew how to pass this quiz. 'cause I
yeah.
need to get my-
Hey, listen, just in case. Just in case.
Now, first of all, I'm at Ball State. There was never a just in case. Let's get that clear out the window. I was never buying into, I'm going to be an NFL player, and that's it. No, I always was, by the way, I'd already got a job at State Farm making $35,000.
Hey, that's pretty good right out of
At
college.
that time. So I would
back then
never, I was
especially.
always working on plan B, and I never bought into that, I'm just an athlete, and that's never who I was.
Yeah.
My mom wasn't going to allow it. That was, that's something that you do, is not identifying who you are.
Gotcha.
And that never transferred. Matter of fact, my first year in the league, I interned at Solomon Smith Barney as a financial advisor. And that's when I realized, this is going to be pretty tough. It took me 3 times to pass my Series 7.
But see, that is good advice, though, for any young player that may be
that'll
listening.
tell you who I am right there. Right there in that nutshell. Like, dang, man. It's back probably because it was really hard.
Yeah, that's true.
It was really hard. NFL was hard.
The 2021 draft was an all-timer for me. So I'm you probably have picked up on this by now, very reactionary guy, very passionate, emotional person. That was the year that they drafted Caleb Farley, Dylan Radins, Monty Rice, Elijah Molden, Des Fitzpatrick, Rashad Weaver, Racey McMath, Brady Breeze.
Did you tear your hair out?
Yes.
I think a lot of people were like that on
Let me say
this,
this.
including myself.
There's video evidence on Twitter from when I worked at Broadway Sports Media and we did draft coverage where I blasted the Dylan Radins pick, and then they end up going for Monty Rice. And I got made fun of by the guys at A to Z Sports for saying this, of all people to say something about, clickbaity stuff. I said about Monty Rice, said, this is when I know that John Robinson should be on the hot seat because he just drafted Monty Rice.
Well, that was
Look
it.
at this. Not one he had one more draft and then he was fired. So I just want to throw that out there that someone else was right about that.
Was that the same draft as Fitz?
Yes. So we are in the midst of home shopping, and I know I got a little bit of time, only a little bit of time. We're in the midst of home shopping, and I scheduled go to see an open house around the draft because I'm not missing the draft. And so we stay a little bit longer because we really like the house in the neighborhood. We're driving to her parents' house from Goodlettsville to Bellevue. And I hear that and I think we have time, right? Because they traded up for Des Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
And they traded up. And I hear that the pick is in music, and they say that the Tennessee Titans have traded up. Will come back or whatever. And I'm looking at Lauren. We go to commercial break, right? And I'm looking at Lauren and I go, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, I am stoked. I was like, this is the dude. He's a John Robinson pick. It makes all the sense in the world. He fits in need. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I'm driving, which is probably a bad choice on our part, though. I'm driving. And they announced Des Fitzpatrick, and I just go off for like 20 minutes just complaining to Lauren the whole way to her parents' house about how stupid this pick is. Who is Des Fitzpatrick?
I didn't know
he
who
was
he was either.
undraftable.
Right.
And he's like a 6th round, 7th round pick, and I just cannot let it go, Blaine. I'm sitting there angry tweeting at her parents' house and all that kind of stuff at the same time. So there could be some angry tweeting this weekend, but we'll see how it goes. But I just had to get that story, and I'm going to want to hear everybody else's draft stories tomorrow. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here at 105 The Zone. We're less than 24 hours, or a little bit over 24 hours away from the draft. 3HL's up next in the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.